Yeah. One time, gosh, there's so many stories, but you say broad daylight, and that triggered me to remember seeing Gary on my front porch. Was Gary was a spirit from the Bellaire House that I told that he could come home with me. Don't ever do that. Don't ever.
I was
And
about to say, my mind was like automatically, well, that's something normally people wouldn't say.
yeah, don't ever do something like that. I got caught up in the moment, and a good friend of mine said, kick me out of my house because we made a pact with each other a long time ago. Listen, if we ever cross the line, spiritually, you throw me out, I'm throwing you out. Like, I don't care if it's my house, you throw me the heck out. And and they did. Thank God. But no, I was so caught up in that spirit session, that communication session, that I actually told Gary that he could come home with me
Was
or
that a
go with. I didn't say come home, but I said he can go with me.
was that
Um,
a was that a bad thing or a good thing?
I it's a bad thing. You should never do it, but think because you never know if the spirit's good or bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Say good or bad, positive or negative. The story is actually on my YouTube channel, like the Breed Little Reel about Gary, and it's really cool. You have to watch it, but I think it was a good thing because Gary ended up letting me know that him, his wife, and their son made it out of the Bellaire house. They made it out. Their spirits that left, but he showed up in the flesh. Flesh.
What was he doing when I already got my hair's already standing up? What was he doing when you saw him?
This happened, gosh, who knows? This is months later. So we had a super full blue blood moon soiree at the Bellaire House. And that's when we made communication with them. I mean, you always use astrology with paranormal. Always. You'll never lose with it. Months later, I'm in my apartment. Nobody knows where I live. Nobody. I get out of the shower because I hear the doorbell ringing. And I go to the front door, and there's a guy standing on the front porch, and he said, I would like to look at the apartment below you. And I'm like, well, sure, let me get a hold of Laney. And he says, I've tried to get a hold of, the owner of the property, and I can't get a hold of him. Um, Here's my information. The maintenance guy will get a hold of him. So I went about my day. I was leaving to take my son to bowling practice. I opened up the door, and there's the same guy, his wife. Now, the guy at the Bellaire House told me that he was from Florida. His last name was Hetherington, and his name was Gary. That there's no Gary Hetherington on paper, none. In the session, he said that him and three other guys were bound to cubbyhole in the attic. They lived there, all three of them. Okay. So then he said he was from Florida. Then he said his wife was Milano. Then he said their son was 4 months, or no, 4 years old, and he plunged to his death from the gable that faces the north in the Bellaire house. He plunged to it. So evil entity lured him to the window, and he died. And his wife also died in the house because their son died. And he could not spiritually leave them at all because this thing in that Bellaire house was still present. And there was a lot of people asking questions. There was a lot of really good investigators there that night. And the amount of information that we got drove me to the point where I was so emotional. I told him, you could lay in any bed, you can eat food, you don't have to stay here, you could come with me. Prior to that, my son, when he was 2 years old, was at the top of that gable, the same gable, and he had the windows open, getting ready to jump out of it, saying that he was Buzz Lightyear and he was going to fly. And as he said fly, I grabbed him and pulled him back in. And it wasn't that I was a bad mom not watching my kid. I was on the toilet puking and shitting because I had the flu. And I could hear Bella going up and down, you know, and then I didn't hear her anymore. So I knew that they were together, and I went up to the steps, and a voice said, attic, just like that. I zoomed up the attic and just got him in time.
Was it like a male voice or a female voice?
Female. It was female voice. I think it was Lyde Hetherington. Then he appeared at my apartment. He's standing outside of the house, and his wife, she's 4 months pregnant. The child was 4 years old. I'm not getting it yet. I'm just like thinking we're getting new neighbors, and this is great. I love babies.
Do you do you
That's what I'm thinking, right?
I'm I'm so curious. Like you saw them in the flesh. So
Yes.
what did they look like?
Gary was probably about 5'10", dark skin, like buzzed hair, but it had grown out a little bit. He had a jacket on. It was cold. Very, very kind. This kind face, kind energy. Was really trying to get information. Was really, really needing help. Then I saw her, and she had hair about to here. Cute little baby bump.
Were they like wearing old-fashioned clothes?
No, they were wearing clothes like we would wear right now. I walk around the house to show Gary and his wife, his pregnant wife, the apartment, and wait for maintenance and say, "This is where you need to wait. Good luck. Hopefully, we'll have a picnic on the back porch." And he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Kristin Lee, my family is eternally grateful for everything that you've done for us." It hasn't hit me yet. I'm like, "Oh, no worries, guys. Have fun. We'll have some really good food." You know what I mean? Like, see ya. Driving lane to bowling practice, and the light bulb goes off. I said, "That's Gary from the Bellaire House," and he gave me his number to text Laney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once I pulled off took Lane and pulled off, and I told myself, well, if this phone number is a Florida phone number, like Gary's from Florida, then it's 1,000% him. And then the other part's like, nah, it's not going to be. It's
And
not
it
gonna
was.
be. It was, yeah.
He left that day. Did he just like put his hand on your shoulder and just walk out of the building with his wife? And
We were outside,
oh, he did.
but yeah, and I left them there. I turned away and I walked away from them. I had to hop in my whip and take my son to bowling practice, and they were just going to wait for
That was the last time.
I've never heard or seen from him again. Neither has Laney ever.